Alright guys, welcome back with me with another YouTube video. So today I'll talking about Luffy's perfect Haki form. So, make sure to stay tuned for that. If you do enjoy seeing this anime reviews and want to keep them coming, the best thing you can do is smash that like button, and if you haven't, be sure to subscribe, and this is crucial, hit that notification bell or you will miss future anime videos. Haki is one of the elements of strength in the One Piece story. As if completing the devil fruit, which gives a unique power to the person who eats it, Haki becomes one of the elements of strength that makes a person stronger. Haki itself has long been explained in the One Piece story, but a brief explanation of Haki itself was only done by Rayleigh when he was going to train Luffy before the time skip. According to Rayleigh, Haki can generally be divided into two forms. However, Rayleigh's explanation raises a big question about Haki. Why didn't Rayleigh tell him about Conqueror Haki right away? If usually we can split Haki into two parts, why not Conqueror Haki? Rayleigh himself did not mention that for most people Haki can be split in half, that Haki can generally be split into two. But the working system of Haki itself is still not clearly explained. This is what has been bothering me for such a long time. Why is Conqueror's Haki not in Rayleigh's explanation immediately? If typically you can divide Haki into two shades, why can't you do the same with Conqueror's Haki? Wouldn't Haki typically be divided into three shades, but one just has no access to it? Rayleigh is not stating, for most people Haki can be divided into two main shades, but says, Haki can generally be divided into two main shades, which is wrong unless he is right, but we just don't understand yet how. Hear me out, this is going somewhere, and this has been an observation I had for at least 6 months. The point is that Conqueror's Haki is atypical. You cannot divide the Conqueror's Haki like the other forms of Haki. It can interact with the other colors to create a new color, hence why the color metaphor is used in the first place. It's actually extremely fitting to the idea that Oda is going for. It's a color palette, and go figure, the three main colors are green, red and blue, with which you can create the rest of the colors. The only reason why Oda would use the color palette metaphor in the first place is if the colors can mix. This is the point of colors, and that Oda picked the three main colors shows that he is going for this idea. But what does this mean for Haki? We will soon see, but first we have to recognize that the plan has changed, and what started as Ryu being the only form of armament Haki was altered after the time skip. I have talked about this issue already in my previous theory. The point being, it's a bit more complicated now, because the metaphor doesn't perfectly apply any longer, and we take some artistic creativity in illustrating the new color palette. Before we do that, we have to find out what the new colors are and why they exist in the first place. Let's think about observation Haki as blue. But for armament Haki it's not that simple. For Ryu we take red, and for Hardening we take black. These are the two colors of Haki you can typically divide. They are distinct in a certain sense, but Conqueror's Haki is different. For the Conqueror's Haki, let's say it's yellow, but it can't be typically divided like the rest. It has its own effect and usefulness, but it has a certain property: it can mix with the other colors, creating new forms of Haki that can't be taught. This is what Hyogoro is referring to. These forms of Haki can't be taught because only a selected few have access to this Haki. I know most people think Luffy showing his abilities was just to create hype, but there was a purpose all along. The point of Luffy showing off is to realize that Hyogoro doesn't possess Conqueror's Haki. There is a distinction between those two that explains what is the meaning of the current Haki training plotline in Udon and what people can reach. Even though he used to be a big shot that Kazuki Oden, a Conqueror's Haki master, idolized, he himself isn't a Conqueror's user. Is this where the Haki storyline is heading? We discover that you can only obtain certain colors of Haki only through the mixture of Conqueror's Haki? Rayleigh already told us that it can't be typically divided and that it can't be trained. Hyogoro tells us that the form of Implosion Haki goes beyond any Ryu that he can't teach, which doesn't make any sense. How can Hyogoro not teach Luffy the mastery of this level of Ryu if he himself is a Ryu master, who almost certainly even trained Rayleigh, Shanks, Roger, Oden himself? People who possess this type of Haki seem to have the same take on how to improve your Haki as Hyogoro does. There were two Haki training arcs since the New World began. The first was with Rayleigh's flashback or Katakuri fight and Luffy learning Future Sight, an ability that has only been mastered by Conqueror's Haki users: Luffy, Katakuri, most likely admirals like Aokiji or Akainu, solely. Rayleigh couldn't teach Luffy Future Sight, and Luffy has learned this ability through extreme conditions of battle. By experiencing extreme conditions in battle, he grew and obtained this ability. Doesn't this sound exactly how one trains his Conquerors Haki? The same is, coincidentally, also true for what is currently going on, and mind you, Luffy again showed something else off. Luffy is using this ability before Hyogoro, who seems to encounter the ability for the first time. Taking into account that Hyogoro doesn't possess Conquerors Haki and he doesn't know what future sight is, it shows its relation to each other. If one doesn't possess Conquerors Haki, one isn't able to learn these unique colors of Haki, and it just makes sense why Conquerors Haki would be different. Conquerors Haki is the manifestation of its user spirit, and hence why one can impose it onto others. That is why this color can impose itself on other forms of Haki to create new colors. For instance, we get the color of future sight by mixing Observation Haki and Conquerors Haki, a form of Haki that can't be learned by non-Conqueror users. Especially, if we consider how the same is true for this new type of Haki that I call Implosion Ryu. By mixing Armament Haki, Ryu, and Conquerors Haki, we get Implosion Ryu. One imposes their Ryu onto the enemy, and this leads to them being destroyed from the inside. This is the reason why this goes beyond normal Ryu, and why it can't be taught by someone who doesn't possess Conquerors Haki. It is still a form of Ryu, but it has a shade in it that can't be progressed through teaching. Conquerors Haki can only be strengthened by one's personal growth. The descriptions are the same and the connections are all there. The truth about the Conquerors Haki is that it can mix with the other two shades to create new colors. The reason why I think now this ability is related to Conquerors Haki is because all of the advanced Haki users, Katakuri, Big Mom and Luffy, have it. The color palette has changed, and Hardening having an advanced form therefore makes perfect sense. There is Ryu, flowing, which results ultimately in implosions, and there is Hardening. What would be the application of Hardening, which is an internal ability with the Conquerors Haki? It would be the flaming pattern. You are imposing your will onto yourself, which enables you to remain with the properties of your devil fruit while using Haki. This is why Doflamingo has never encountered this ability before. It's only useful to people who need to use their devil fruit ability, Haki, at the same time and have Conquerors Haki. We are taking a real case study, Law, to help illustrate this point. Someone like him would benefit by flaming Haki greatly, but he doesn't have access to it for some reason, even though he knows the normal Hardening. Is it a coincidence that the one guy who is very strong and benefits probably the most on the planet by using the flaming pattern, it enables you to use your devil fruit ability while using your Haki at the same time? It also enables you to apply your devil fruit on the opponent, even if he uses Haki, doesn't have the Conquerors Haki? It's just perfect for Law, and he would be able to apply his devil fruit on his enemy while using his room and sword. Though, he is forced to use an external ability like Ryu around his sword to cut people because he can't apply his devil fruit with Hardening within his blade. Hardening changes the properties internally. Only super powerful people like Big Mom, Katakuri and Luffy obtained this stage of Hardening. Needless to say, all of them again, Conquerors Haki users. To summarize, the color palette looks something like this. This entire stage of Haki is separate to swordsmanship, and one can create black blades through the usage of Ryu and Hardening at the same time. If you apply this principle of creating a barrier around your sword and fill your sword with Hardening, this process seals the black inside it. This process isn't important to the theory, but just in case people are confused why this isn't relevant to swordsmanship. The way of the sword is different than the way of the conqueror, and they don't align. If you are a reader of mine, you know what I believe the true form of Conquerors Haki to be, which is Black Lightning. I think I have finally figured out what it truly is. People obviously have realized it is related to the Conquerors Haki, but at the same time it always had a strange relation to Armament Haki. Sabo is one of the few people who seems to have perfect control over Black Lightning, but at the same time has a lot of fighting to show for. To find the answer what Black Lightning is, we have to figure out what kind of Haki Sabo is using. He uses Hardening, obviously, and Flowing. There is no doubt that Sabo is a Conquerors Haki user because Luffy and Ace are. He seems to be even significantly stronger than current Luffy and deserves the number 2 spot in the Revolutionary Army. What is the point? Well, if Hardening and Flowing can be used at the same time, as we have seen repeatedly. What would happen if you use Implosion and the Flaming Haki at the same time? Bingo! This is the one thing that makes Armament Haki unique to the other colors. It has 2 shades and both can be used at the same time. By having the advanced version of each through the possession of Conquerors Haki, one obtains the ultimate form of Haki, black lightning, flowing black energy, it's kinda obvious now that we think about it. I wouldn't be surprised to get to know that Kaido's club got blackened in the world just doesn't know. It's technically not a blade either way. That Kaido took all these hits from Luffy without receiving any damage proves that he has the most terrifying armament haki we have ever seen. I can't even say that Big Mom would take these punches even half as good. She is able to create a barrier with Ryu but to resist Gear 4 without leaving any marks. This is the greatest show of defense in the entire series. Kaido is an absolute armament monster. Who said this for some reason? Clearly implying that they don't need other conquerors like him. These lines aren't all dropped by accident. The truth about the Conquerors Haki is that it is atypical and it can mix with other colors. The manifestation of black lightning is the ultimate form of haki because it uses Implosion Ryu, flowing, and flaming, hardening, to maximize the potency of his weapon and at the same time bypasses any defense. The attacks are so strong that they can one-shot someone like Gear 4 Luffy, a 1,500,000,000 bounty man. The name of Kaido's attack, Thunderclap, gives away that it's named after the black lightning. This is where the storyline we are currently on is leading towards, and Luffy will have to learn the ultimate form of haki to defeat Kaido.